Okay. So we'll start today on Daf Chaf Hei Amud Aleph, and still we're speaking about Karfif. Let's just make sure the Karfif is an area which is mostly it's not for residential. So it's but sometimes you do make this Karfif and you're going to use it for residential. So the principle is that that if it's when he made the fencing, it was not fenced off for residential purposes, so then it has a halach of something which is not residential, and therefore, if it's larger than Beis Hasayim, one is not permitted to carry there, like in a Carmelis. If it's fenced off for residential area, then if it's fenced off for a residential area, so then it's considered residential, and therefore, even if it's larger than a Beis Hasayim, one is permitted to carry there and has dinner Rosh Hashanah. Now, so here we're learning on Daf Chaf Hei Amud Aleph, we're learning about a karfif which is karfif based sholish. So the karfif is in a is an area of sholish saw, not sasayim is two base saw, and sholish is the size of 3 base saw. Okay, so it's 3 base saw, and it's not hookah for dira, and therefore you cannot carry them on Shabbos. Now the kira boy base saw, he made a structure with a roof there, which for an area of a base saw. So all of a sudden, it's now down to sasayim. So the unroofed area is down to sasayim. So the question is it considered that you've minimized the area and therefore the open area, which is the fenced, which is not residential, is only sasayim, therefore you're permitted to carry, or is the roof area, the roof structure does not have any walls. So the roof structure does not have any walls. So is that area not considered part of the karfif, and therefore it's only Beis Hasayim, so then one is permitted to carry. So Rava Omar Avir Keruv Miyasrei. Rava says that the air which is underneath the roof structure, which there's no walls, just the roof. So that is makes it more than Beis Hasayim. In other words, it's still this karfif is still too large to be permitted to carry there. Rav Zera Amar Ein Avir Keruv Miyasrei, that the space which has been roofed is not considered as Miyasrei means from Yoiser. It is not considered part of the rest of the karfif. Therefore, it's not more than Beis Hasayim. It's only Beis Hasayim. So therefore, you're permitted to carry in the karfif. So, what is the argument about? So, Lema, so the Gemara suggests that Lema Rav Zera booked the Rav Shmuel Kamifri. That Rav Zera, they're arguing in the Machlekes of Rav Shmuel, and the argument of Rav Shmuel is if in such a situation we say Pi Kaira Yored V'Seisem. There is a concept of Pi Kaira Yored V'Seisem. That means that if you have a roof, so the edge of the roof, which is which goes downwards, which is perpendicular to the ground, the edge of the roof, even though there's no wall there, but the edge of the roof, being that it's perpendicular to the ground, it's Yored V'Seisem, as if it continues down and blocks the and it's like a mechitza. It's considered like a mechitza. So therefore, therefore it would be we could say that the argument is whether whether they hold of this principle of, in such a situation, do we say Pi Tikra Yored V'Seisem? And so therefore, if it's like a fenced off area, if this area which is roofed is considered a fenced up area, even though there's no walls there, it's considered a fenced-off area. So if it's considered a fenced-off area, so then obviously it's minimized. It's not included as part of the rest of the karfev, and therefore it minimizes the area of the karfev, and therefore you'd be permitted to carry in the rest of the karfev because it's less than base society. But if you do not say pitikra yarivasesem, so there's no mechitza there, and there's no mechitza there, so it's part of the rest of the karfev, and therefore the karfev is larger than the base society, and you're not permitted to carry the karfev. So that's what the Gemara is suggesting. So Lemer Rabbi Zera pukti Rabbi Shmuel Kamiflige the Itme will learn Aksandra. So Rashi explains what's Aksandra. That means it's a roofed area, and Bebika, which is in a valley, and a valley there's no mechitza. So the discussion is in a slightly. It's not about Beis Hasayim, it's a different discussion between Rav and Shmuel. So you have this, the Bika has no mechitzas, so it's a Carmelis, and then you have the Aksandra there, and you don't have mechitzas you don't have the mechitzas in the Aksandra also not. Tesis brings that Rashi later says that Aksandra is it means broke. It's open from all four sides. So according to Rashi, this Aksandra is open for all four sides. So what do we want to know? Of course, in the Bika one is not permitted to carry. It's a Carmelis, but within the Aksandra, are you permitted to carry? So Rava Mamutal Tampa Bekula, you can carry within the Aksandra. That you cannot carry in the Aksandra, even within the area of the Aksandra, you cannot carry. Only Dal Damas. Dal Damas you're permitted to carry anywhere. Even in Rosh Hashanah, you can carry Dal Damas. You can't carry more than Dal Damas, but Dal Damas you can carry. Why does Rav say you're permitted to carry within the whole area of the Aksandra? Because the roof is the edge of the roof is considered like a mechitza. Amrina we say pitikra, the mouth of the roof. Yored v'seisim is goes all the way down and blocks the whole area. So it's if the mechitza of the roof continues to go down to the ground, so it's a mechitza. Therefore, it's a mechitza, so it's a house. You have mechitzas on all four sides, so therefore you can carry your shusha yochid within the karmelis. Shmuel says, you can only carry within the arba amas. Such a situation, it's open on all four sides. We do not say pi tikra yored l'seisem. So there's just a roof, no mechitzas. So it's not a shusha yochid, and therefore one cannot carry there only within the arba. So, like we said, this was suggested that this is a machlokes and Rabbi Zera, whether that if it's considered that there is mechitzas, so then the area of which is a slightly different situation there, that area minimizes from the rest of the karfev. If there's no mechitzas, then it's part of the rest of the karfev. So the Gemara says, Ida Kaksandra Hachinami. No, it could be that the machlokes is a different machlokes. If it's made like a Cassandra, maybe they all agree that P Tikra V'Yeri even Rava will also agree that we say P Tikra V'Yeri and he'll hold. Could be that he holds like Rav, that we say P Tikra V'Yeri even though it's open from all sides. But there's the argument between Rava and Reb Zera of the Zilla when there is no P Tikra V'Yeri. Why? Because it's a sloping roof. So it's a sloping roof. There's no you need that the thickness of the roof is perpendicular to the ground, and therefore we say it goes all the way as it goes all the way down. If you have a slanting roof, you don't have anything which is perpendicular to the ground because the whole roof and the whole structure is slanting, and therefore there's nothing there. There's no edge there which is perpendicular to the ground, and it won't. And we don't say Tikra V'Seisem. So, and that is a machlekes if such a structure is minimizes from the area of the karfev. Okay. So Rabbi Zera is actually the one who says that this structure will not minimize from the karfev. the structure with a slanty roof will not minimize from the structure of the kafif. Amar Reb Zera said, "Umadina, I agree. The kafif shnifritz b'miloy. That so he's going to give it's a different halacha, a different scenario in the kafif. With there, he agrees that." Reb Zera is the one that said. Let me just check. Reb Zera said yes. Reb Zera said yes. That the Reb Zera is one that said that the sloped area does minimize from the kafif. So what did Reb Zera say? Just to repeat, Reb Zera is the one that says that the sloped roof, the area which is covered with a sloped roof, even though it's open from all sides, minimizes from the area of the carpet, and you're permitted to carry in the carpet. Now, Reb Zera is going to be made that in a different type of carpet, a different scenario, you cannot carry in the carpet. Umedina and I made the carpet shnifetz b'meloy l'chotzer she'oser. So if you have a carpet which borders on a chotzer, so you have a chotzer. Chotzer is a place which is the front yard of a house, which is asuya l'dira. That's a chotzer. And then if you have a carpet which borders on the chotzer, and the fence between the entire fence, nifratz b'miluy, the entire fence between the chotzer and the carpet has fallen down, has been broken, it's fallen down, it's the entire fence. Also, that in such a situation, and that makes the karfif more than base sasayim. So beforehand, the karfif was okay; it was base sasayim exactly. So the karfif was exactly base sasayim. So base sasayim exactly is still permitted to carry. Now that the wall has fallen down between the karfif and the chotzer, so now the area which doesn't have the open area has become enlarged. So if you add the area of the chotzer, then it becomes more than basis sign, since the karpet was exactly basis sign. So with the area of the chotzer, it becomes more than basis sign. So she'aser, then you're not allowed to carry. My timer, what's the reason? That now it's connected with chotzer because there's no mechitza between them. So therefore, it's now larger than basis sign, and therefore. And the karpet is not residential, so therefore you're not permitted to carry there because it's increased in size. Maskif Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef asked the kasha, why are you not allowed to carry that? He says it this. Now, just before we go anywhere, there is a machlekes between Rav Shimon and Chachamim. So if you have, we know that you're not allowed to carry from one Rosh Hashanah to another Rosh Hashanah. You're not allowed to carry. Now, there in this din that you're not allowed to carry from one Rosh Hashanah to another Rosh Hashanah is a machlekes between Reb Shimon and the Chachamim. The Chachamim say, if you have different, if you have a chotzer and a karpet and gag, all these different chatzeres, things, areas which are not heavily used, which is only light use. So a house is used to live, is heavily used. Then you have areas which are light use, like a chotzer, like a karpet, even if it's residential, and a gag, a roof, okay, those areas. So, and then you might have you might have two chatzeres as well. You might have a chotzer next to a chotzer. So you might have a chotzer next to a chotzer as well. So according to Reb Shimon, he takes a very lenient view, and he says that this halacha, you're not allowed to carry from one rishus to another rishus, only refers from a house, which is a heavily used area, to a chotzer, to somebody else's chotzer. But if you have a chotzer next to a chotzer, or a chotzer next to a karpet, etc., then even though they belong to different people, and one is private and one is public, whatever, you are still permitted to carry from one to the other. So again, Reb Shimon, he is of the opinion that all these lightly used areas, this halacha, which is midrabanan, they're not allowed to carry from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, will not apply. You're permitted to carry from those types of Rosh Hashanah to another type of Rosh Hashanah. And when do you need an Eruv, and Eruv Chetzeres and all that stuff? When do you need that? When you have houses. When you have houses, from the house, which is a heavily used Rosh Hashanah, to somebody else's Rosh, which is Chotzer or whatever, not just somebody else's house, even to somebody else's chotzer, but from the house to the chotzer, then you're not allowed to carry without making erev chatzeres. But between the chatzeres themselves is not a problem. That is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. And Chacham arguing, they say, every individual chotzer belongs to a different person or different ownership, etc. It'll need, you can't carry without making an error. Okay. Now, so Maskef lo Rabbi Yosef. So Rabbi Yosef is going to ask a question. He says, how can that be? When you had that fence standing between the karfef and the chotzer belongs to one person. The karfef, whoever it belongs to, whatever. Yeah, and so you're permitted, according to Reb Shimon, you're permitted to carry from the chotzer to the karfef, as long as you're not taking from the house. So you have a fence, so long as you won't take from the house out to the other karfef, from the house to the chotzer, you would be permitted to carry because it's all one fence which surrounds it, but you will not be able to carry from the house to the next to the karfef, which is on the other side of the fence. But you are permitted to carry from the chotzer, according to Reb Shimon, because from the chotzer to the karfef is from these two lightly used areas, even though they belong to different people. So you're permitted to carry from one or the other. So he's asking, I don't get it. When the wall is standing, you're allowed to carry from the chotzer to the karfef, and now the wall's fallen down. All of a sudden, that chotzer makes it also to carry. That causes it also to carry in the karfef. How can it be that the space which you when the fence was standing, you're allowed to carry from that place into the karfef? There's no problem. And then now all of a sudden, that makes the karfef beforehand by itself, you're allowed to carry because it was exactly based on science. And now that that area which the mechitza is fallen down, that area, the chotzer causes the karfef to be also to carry when you were able to carry before with the mechitza standing. How could it be? So Rabbi said 1 second. He says to Rabbi Yosef, come on, your question is based on whose opinion? On the shikha of Reb Shimon. Okay, the Reb Shimon nami. He says, okay, true, it cannot be that that what you permitted to carry beforehand from the chotzer into the karfef, then all of a sudden it makes it also what? But there is a space of the wall. Now that space where the wall was standing, which is now fallen down, so that space is added, that can make it also. So that space can make it also to carry in the karfef. That means that if the karfef is exactly sasayim, and now you have that space, there's nothing substantial in that space, it's very minimal, that space. But whatever it is, that has pushed it over the edge. It is now becoming larger than base sign. It's now become larger than base sign. Therefore, it's also. So that is Abaya's answer for the question which Rabbi Yosef had on Rabbi Zera. In such a case, he agrees that this addition will make the karfef also to carry this additional extra space. And he brings a proof to that we say that this small area is this can tip the balance if it makes the difference between sasayim and more, it can tip the balance. What's the proof? The Amr of Chizah says, brings it around because the karfef shnifutz b'meloim l'chotzer. That the Chizah said that the karfef, which the whole again the entire fence has fallen down between the karfef and the chotzer has fallen down. Okay. So what's the halacha? Chotzer muteres, the karfef osur. So the chotzer is you're allowed to carry the chotzer, and the karfef you're not permitted to carry. Now, what's the difference? Why? Why? Obviously, the karfef was based a sign. Otherwise, there's no point to this halacha because you're never allowed to carry the karfef anyway. So this is karfef based a sign. Okay. Now, so the wall is completely fallen down between the karfef and the chotzer. So we say that the chotzer is you can continue carrying the chotzer, but now in the karfef you're not allowed to carry. So okay, so let's try and understand why is that reason? Why one is also one is mutter. So chotzer my timer. Why are you permitted in the chotzer? The isla gefufi, because we will make this scenario. Of the karfef being narrower than the chotzer. So let's make the scenario of the karfef being narrower than the chotzer. So if the karf is narrow and the chotzer, so the wall between the karf and the chotzer has completely fallen down. But nevertheless, the chotzer still has some of this fourth wall. Yeah, there's 4 walls in the chotzer, so it still has some of the fourth wall, because till there's on both let's say the karf was in the center, was opposite the center of the chotzer, so, and it's narrower, so it's narrower, so then there is the remnants of the wall on both sides of the chotzer. It's like Yifufi. And if the break is less than, if this break is less than 10 amas, so the break is less than 10 amas, so the chotzer has 4 mechitzas around it. The break between the karf and the chotzer is only Pesach, so it was 4 mechitzas around it, you'll have to carry. And the karf only has 3 mechitzas. 1 mechitzas is missing, so that's why you're not allowed to carry in the karf, because 1 mechitzas is missing, so you must have something there. Because the wall is full in its entirety. So 1 second. So the Gemara asks, why give such a halacha? I mean, if the whole sole reason why you're allowed to carry in the chotzer and not in the karf, because the karf is narrower than the chotzer, so it's like Rav Chizah shouldn't say his din in such a way that the karf is permitted and the chotzer is also. It halacha is depends which is narrower. If the chotzer is narrower, then you can't carry the chotzer, you can carry the karf, because the karf has 4 mechitzas and the chotzer doesn't. If the karf is narrow, then you can carry the chotzer on the karf. So this din, and the principle of this din is totally dependent which one is narrow. So why does Rav Chizah say a din, and he says it doesn't detail the scenario, and he says the karf is also and the chotzer is mutter. It just depends which one is narrower. That's what Rav Chizah should be saying. So obviously it must be a different principle which is involved over here. It's not discussing this. So obviously, right. I didn't remember if I said inside the Amr chotzer my timer. Why is it permitted? It's like Gefufe, because you have the part of the 4th fence which is still there. So it must be. So therefore, that's not the intention. It's not these principles are a work over here, which Rav Chizah is talking about. Ella is a different story here. That this is going according to Reb Shimon, and the Rav Chizah is not going according to the Chachamim, which hold you can't carry from one Rishus Yachid to another Rishus Yachid of these lightly used Rishus Yachids. But this is going according to Reb Shimon, that holds that these lightly used Rishus Yachids, you are permitted to carry from one from the other. So therefore, the mechitzas falling down, that's not much of an issue, because the mechitzas is there, the mechitzas falling down, you can carry from one to the other, from one Rishus to the other. That's the opinion of Reb Shimon. So it must be that the problem is that because now you have this added space, that the space between the mechitzas have now increased the size of the karf. It's become over more than base aside. So because the chotzer, which is residential, so it becomes a bit big deal. It becomes a bit bigger. That's not the. It's a residential area; it can be any size. Whereas the karf, which is non-residential, so now this amount of the mechitzas tips the balance and has made it more than base aside, and therefore you're not permitted to carry it. Just supporting his principle, which you mentioned before. Okay, now who bustana? There was this garden which is not residential. Have some the good of that partner. It was next to a palace or whatever, mansion, whatever, next to the wall of the mansion. Now, so the walls of the mansion were part of the walls of this bustan of this garden. So therefore, the mansion is to live. It says since the mansion is to live, so that means that this garden is fenced off with a fencing which makes it residential, because the wall of the mansion was made there to be residential, because you're going to live in the mansion, and that wall is also the fence of this garden, and and therefore the wall is a residential wall. Therefore, you'll be permitted to carry in this bustana in the garden of paradise, which has the trees, the tree garden. Yeah. So, that partner, and the wall which serves as the fence of this mansion, and which is part of the mansion, which serves as the fence of this garden, this tree garden, so fell down. So what happened? So that fence which makes the garden fenced off for living, fenced off for residential, that has disappeared. But nevertheless, the place is still fenced off because you have the rest of the mansion. Okay, well, that wall fell down, but you have the rest of the mansion which is surrounding the areas, is still fenced off. So, okay, fine. This wall has fallen down, which was the original wall around the tree garden. It was a tree garden which is not the tree garden in essence is not residential. It's only this wall, one wall of the tree garden, which was made for residential, which turned the whole thing into a residential area. So okay, but so you don't have that wall, but you have the rest of the mansion, the rest of the structure of the mansion, which is still there, which is fencing it up. So that's still considered residential. Papi said, since you come from those people who are cut down, who are not Meirech Yomim, because they came from the Rabbi was the son of Rabbi who came from Iyar Kohen, and Iyar Kohen was a curse on his family from Iyar Kohen from the time of Tanakh, who was before Shmuel, the one who was there with the story of Hannah. So the punishment for his descendants was that they're not going to be Meirech Yomim because of the misbehavior of his sons. Anyway, so since you come from that family, you say milim mulaisa, things which are cut off, which not really make sense. Hanach mechitze leguvaya. Those mechitzas, which are the rest of the mansion, they are not made. They're not fences for the for this garden. The broiler don't make for the outside. So therefore, the fence which turned the fence which turned the tree garden into a residential area was this outside fence, which was fenced off both the house and which was part of the house, and which fenced off the tree garden. But now that's disappeared, so the other fencings were not for the tree garden, and so they may be residential, the rest of the house, but they were not there to fence off the tree garden. Therefore, it doesn't count to turn the tree garden into a residential, and therefore, if that wall disappeared, you cannot carry in that area. Okay. Ahu abav naka. The Havlo, so there was this tree, which a very large tree, and it was a beautiful. It was nice to in the summer to be underneath that tree. I guess it's large and airy and whatever. It's amazing to have your picnic or your meals over there and to stay there in the heat of the summer instead of being in the house outside. This beautiful shade, amazing. So this is about Ranka, the Havlo Reish Galusa, which was the Reish Galusa, the Bustan in his garden, this tree garden. He had this tree garden. He had this special good tree. So he wanted to spend Shabbos over there and have the meal over there, etc. So he wanted to be able to carry. So so he said to Rav Huna bar Chinna, Levid Marta Kanta, the Lamocha Nechel Name Hosa. Yeah, so can you say to Rav Huna bar Chinna, make something that we should be able to have the meal there tomorrow on the day of Shabbos. Kitzer. So what did he do? So he made a place for a shomer. He made a place for a shomer. What did he do? Have ozil avad kona pochs mishleisha. He made put in sticks, a few sticks, like an area fenced off, a small area there, a fence with sticks, which there's less than 3 tvachim in each stick, so it's lowered. So he's fenced off the area. He put in 20, 30 sticks, whatever it was, fenced off the area. And so now we have a house for the shomer. We have a house with shomer. So now this place has become a residential. So therefore, he wanted to turn it into a residential area, and therefore, with turns into a residential area, so then you're allowed to carry in. The whole tree park. You'll be able to carry in the tree park, and because it's turned into a residential area. Yeah, that's what he wanted to do. Also, Rove, so he wanted to turn to a residential area, and therefore we'll be able to carry on Shabbos in this bustana and bring the food there and have a nice party underneath that tree. Also, Rove, so Rove went Shalfinu. He took out the sticks. He disagreed with this thing which he did, and he took out the sticks. Also, Rav Papa Rav Huna bereid Rav Yeshua naktinun basrei. I think they took away the sticks or something. They took away, they put them away because to make sure that this thing doesn't get up. They didn't like this heter, and they didn't like this heter, and therefore they put the sticks away. They helped out Rava, and that's done. So they weren't able to have the party there on Shabbos. Okay. Now, Ravin is going to ask a question to Rava, and it's actually bringing a proof that Rava was right. He's asking a question on the heter, like he's saying the heter is not really much of a heter. So why is the heter not a heter? Because it says Ir Chadasha, a new city. You wouldn't be considered different halacha concerning Tchum Shabbos. From where do you start the Tchum? So if you have Ir Chadasha, a new city, when you start measuring the Tchum, what's the Tchum? You don't measure from the wall. You measure from where it's the inhabited part of the city, not from the wall. The wall is covering a larger area, and it's a new city, so it's not been fully developed. So therefore the wall is there, but it's only partially inhabited. So you measure it from where? From the inhabited part. That's where the Tchum Shabbos starts to be measured, and then to know how, because that part where the inhabited part ends, that's already considered the end of the city, even though it's still in the wall, still within the wall limits. If it's an old city, then you don't look how much of it is residential or not. You just start from the wall, and you start measuring from the wall to measure the Tchum Shabbos, because until the wall, it's all included and part of the city. Which is what's old, what's new. So the answer is if you made the wall and then later you put in the diras, so then you put in the wall first, and then when the wall was there, there's no cities there. Later you're going to start building the houses. If that's the case, so then when it's hukav, it's not ladira, because when you started there was no diras there. If it's hukav and there was not ladira, and only you put in the houses later, so the hukav is meaningless, and therefore we start measuring Tchum Shabbos. What's considered outside the city? You have to start from the end of the houses, not from the wall. Yeshena, Yoshalom Seif Hukav. What's called an old one, that first you inhabited the place, then later you build a wall around it. So that means the wall was built from for residential. So we see. So it says over here also the same thing. This is, first of all, you put in a new place of the shomer. Thank you very much. You put in the place, but the mechitzas around this whole tree garden were there before. So the hekef was not residential. The hekef is not residential. I'm sorry. Putting in this hut, or not even hut, whatever this fenced-off area for the shomer is not much value. It will not turn the area into residential, because when the fencing around this the tree paradise was made, it was not made for the purpose of residential. Okay, maybe I'll just stop over here.